Good morning, everyone. So, welcome back to the 7th week of this online English classes. So, I hope you all had a great time, and I assume you have done the mini assignment that I have given to you last time about applying the writing process and trying to write a poem. So, I hope you have done that and you must have submitted to your teachers. All right, so what we are going to do today is, this week we will be focusing on the acquisition of vocabulary, the strategies, okay? So Gidin Sargela had already discussed one of the strategies, right? So before I begin with my session, let me quickly go through what we learned last week, okay? So what did we learn last week? We were kind of more into poetry writing, right? Gidin Sargila did poetry reading and I took session on poetry writing. And then we talked about poetic diction and poetic devices, right? So do you remember what are the poetic devices that you learned? So depending on the classes you are reading in, right? Class 5 and 6, you learned a kind of similar poetic devices. In class 7 and 8, a little more than what classes 5 and 6 learned, right? So, or some of the poetic devices may be little different, okay? So, class 5 and 6, you learned about rhyme, rhythm, isn't it? You learned about simile, metaphor, alliteration, personification. Do you remember all this? Yes? See, we talked about poetry writing, isn't it? See, I'm just going to do a quick review, okay? Poetry writing. And I told you when we write a piece of poem or poem, what we do is we follow the writing process, isn't it? We do follow writing process because we have been repeatedly telling you that whatever type of writing you are into, right, or you are just going to do, you have to follow the writing process. Okay, be it a paragraph, essay, an article, a story, or a piece of poetry. So you have to follow writing process. Okay, so we did that. And class 5 and 6 students might remember we tried writing an acrostic poem, isn't it? Do you remember that? Yes, we did. So I gave my name, right, Tenshu, as an example. We started writing an acrostic poem, and I told you that you can also do a similar thing, right, with your name or maybe your parents' name or your best friend's name. Okay, so we did that, isn't it? So in poetry writing, we tried learning how to write acrostic poems. This is for class 5 and 6, right? And I also told you that we have, see, there are so many different types of poem or poetry pieces, right? So keeping your level in mind, we discussed only few, right? Acrostic, we have rhymed poem, we have narrative poem, descriptive poem, isn't it? And I told you a little bit about haiku as well, right? That originated from Japan, right? Number of syllables that we need to remember when we are to write a haiku. Okay, so rhymed poem we tried, isn't it? And we then talked about, see, acrostic as well as we talked about rhymed poem, right? And we have narrative and descriptive poem as well, okay? So we have, later on when you grow up, you will learn more about sonnets, we have ode, okay? So a lot of other things, okay? Right, so poetry writing. And then we talked about poetic devices. So they are like tools, okay, that poets or writers adopt or use when they are writing. Okay, and this kind of, in a way, helps the poets, okay, in order to make the piece of poetry more appealing, right? And we discussed about certain poetic devices. If you remember, what are the poetic devices that we learned? rhyme and rhythm, right? When we talk about diction as well, the way that you can say the language used, right? So we talked about simile, rhyme, end rhyme. I told you about end rhyme, half rhyme, internal rhyme. When you have the end word rhyme that is at the end of a line in a piece of poem or in a stanza, we call rhyme, end rhyme. And when you have rhymed words within the same line, they are called internal rhymes, right? And half rhyme, when either the consonant or the vowels, okay, rhyme, okay, we call half rhyme. Do you remember all this? End rhyme, internal rhyme, half rhyme. Hope so, right? Then we talked about simile. Okay, so this is a kind of comparison. Okay, made between two different things by using words like or as. She is as sweet as, if you say something, right? A chocolate, if you say. So this comparison is made, right? We talked about a comparison between two different things using like or as. That is simile, right? Then we talked about another kind of comparison which we call metaphor. See, simile, metaphor, rhyme, these are all applicable to all the classes, okay? So even 7 and 8 students should know this. So metaphor is again a comparison between two different things, but not using the word like or as. This kind of comparison is directly implied. Okay, we say one thing is another, right? She is a chocolate, she is a, okay? So that is, you can say, a sort of comparison, or we say the sun is a ball of fire. The sun is a ball of fire. So you are comparing sun to a ball of fire. And here we are using a metaphor, right? If we are, see, metaphor and simile are kind of interconvertible. You can change a metaphor into simile and a simile into metaphor. Okay, like I said, the sun is a ball of fire. Now if I want to change this into a simile, the sun is like a ball of fire. See, now it's a simile. Okay, so simile, metaphor, these are comparison. And then we learned about alliteration, right? Alliteration, where you have the first syllable or letter rhyme with each other, right? With the, you can say, not each other, sorry, the neighboring words, or you can say adjacent words. Okay, so they're very close, and you see, we talked about some tongue twisters, isn't it, where alliteration is used, and some cartoon characters. I told you because they are very catchy. Alliterations in a way help you to remember the things. Okay, so I remember telling you name of some cartoon characters where alliteration is used. Mickey Mouse, Peppa Pig, Shaun the Sheep. If you remember, Donald Duck. Yes, so these are all, you can say, examples. And then you have examples of tongue twisters. Betty bought a bit of butter, but the bit of butter was a little bitter, so she bought another butter to make the bitter butter better, right? So you have this alliteration. Okay, so we learned about that also, and told you about personification, where you give, you can say, a human character to an inanimate object, or I think, yeah, personification and alliteration is something I covered, right? So when you give an animate, you can say a human quality or character to an inanimate object or abstract idea or thought or an animal. So this is personification, when you personify something, right? And I even gave you example of one of my poetry piece written on Miss Matchstick, right? Where I personified the matchstick as a female, right? Miss Matchstick, right? So personification. Then Gideon Hagela discussed about imagery, right? That appeals to all the senses, right? So I think imagery, yes, symbolism. So we covered almost, I think you have repetition. Yes, repetition also. Where you have words repeated, or when it forms at a regular interval of time, we call it refrain, right? Repetition, symbolism, imagery, we talked about simile, metaphor, and these are something we both covered for different classes, okay? So these are, you can say, something that you need to remember, okay? So because these are very helpful when you are going to write a piece of poem. And I told you that it is not necessary that in one piece of poem you can use just one poetic devices. See, you can use as many poetic devices as you can. Okay, and we also told you that it's not necessary that your poem has to be rhymed. See, your poem need to contain or consist some of the poetic devices, so it doesn't necessarily a rhyme. Okay, so you can try. So I told you the younger children, right, class 5, 6 students, you can try writing rhymed poem and then gradually you start incorporating, or you can say using other poetic devices. Okay. The symbolism, imagery, these things are not covered in class 5 and 6. So you can focus on these things, right? Rhyme, simile, metaphor, alliteration. Yes, I think we are missing one more, right? Onomatopoeia, okay, the sound, okay? Boom, because the buzzing sound of bee. These are all examples of onomatopoeia. Okay, so we have onomatopoeia as well. Okay, so these are the poetic devices. Okay, 11 minutes, yeah. So that we kind of discussed last week, right? Poetry reading, poetry writing. We talked about rhythm, how we focus on stressed and unstressed syllables, okay, in order to create a rhythm, right? And we talked about poetic diction and poetic devices, and how poets have the license in a way to arrange the words suiting their purpose in order to make it more appealing. You can play with the words, okay? So these are something we discussed last week. Okay, so coming back to what we are going to do this week is vocabulary, right? Acquisition of vocabulary. So acquisition, how you acquire, right? Why do you think vocabulary is important? Yes. Why do you think having a rich vocabulary is so important? See, right from the beginning of this session, I have been talking blah, 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 right? So if I don't have vocabulary, how am I going to do that? Right? I can just imagine you people or you students looking at me, just watching through, maybe on your laptop or your mobile phone or tablet, right? And you will see that this is quite unusual, like the normal classroom. It's not possible here. In a normal classroom, I wouldn't be doing that much of talking, right? I would let you do more of the talking. But since you are not here and I have to do all the talking, so you see, I have been using so many words, right? Vocabulary is just a word, right? Word list. You have a certain number of words and you use that when you are speaking or when you are writing. Okay, so having a rich vocabulary is very important. If you don't have a rich vocabulary, you will always face problem when it comes to speaking or writing. Okay, so this week we will be discussing some of the strategies. So in the first session, Gideon Cycle, I had already discussed one of the strategies, right? Okay, now look at the slide. See, vocabulary, what we need to remember is the vocabulary, you can say, is categorized into two broad categories, active vocabulary and passive vocabulary. Okay, so active vocabulary is functional, something that we use on a daily basis. See, your active vocabulary is those words that you use whether you are writing or when you are speaking. So they are more functional. So passive vocabulary are like the words that you recognize, okay, you know, but you haven't kind of mastered those words, and so you on a daily basis, or you normally don't use when you are actually writing. But when you read when you read a book, when you read something, you can easily recognize this word. See, you can see other authors or writers use this word. Or when you listen to someone talk, you recognize the word. Okay, but this is your passive vocabulary because you don't use it often. You only recognize. That's why passive vocabulary is called recognition, okay, word or recognition vocabulary. Clear? See, words that one can use correctly in one's own speech and writing. So they are active vocabulary. Okay. Also called working or functional vocabulary, because these are the vocabulary or the words that are in function, okay, that you use. Okay. Passive vocabulary, words that one recognizes in others' speech and writing, but cannot use them on their own. Okay, so like I may recognize a word when I read a book, but I don't have that much, you can say, confidence or mastery, or I'm not used to using that particular word. Okay, so that will be in my passive vocabulary list. Okay. Also called recognition vocabulary, because you recognize the word. That word is not, you can say, something unfamiliar to you. Okay, you know the word, but you don't use it. Okay, so that's why it is called, or they are called, recognition vocabulary. So vocabulary acquisition strategies. So what are some of the strategies, okay, that would help you in vocabulary acquisition? Using context as a clue. Gideon Stargell had already taken one session, and we're continuing with that, right? How you can use, you can say, context as a clue. Using high frequency affixes as a clue. This is what I'm going to do, right? Using known root word as a clue to the meaning of an unknown with the same root. See, if you have an idea about a root word, okay, so if you happen to see this root word in another word, okay, where you don't know the meaning, you can kind of apply, okay, you can kind of puzzle out the meaning. Okay, this is how, rather than just consulting a dictionary, as Gideon Stargell already mentioned, right? You have different ways of trying to find out the meaning. Context clue, affixes, you can look at the affixes as well, and then the root word. So vocabulary acquisition and expanding, how you can expand your vocabulary as well. See, through word families, sometimes you can do that, right? When you have a word, you can think about the word families, okay? Those words associated, you can see association of words. So through patterns of form, you can talk about the word in its noun form, then adjective, verb form, adverb form. So through patterns, you can, in a way, expand your vocabulary as well. Through word lists and groups, you can, like if there's a school, then what are the words that you can think about? Okay, teacher, classroom, okay, whiteboard, blackboard, students. Okay, so you can think about different words, right? Through word games, so you can play different word games, word chains, and so many memory games. There are different games that help in expanding your vocabulary. And the best and the most important strategy for vocabulary acquisition is reading. Okay, you have to read. Okay, unless you read, you cannot dream of having a very rich vocabulary. Okay, so the best and the most important strategy that I would suggest, even your teachers might be suggesting you, right, is reading. Okay, so please cultivate this. Okay, you can say you need to develop this culture of reading if you really want to improve or expand your vocabulary. If you want to enhance and enrich your vocabulary, you have to read, right? Okay, so since Gideon Stargell is discussing the context clue, right? Context as a clue. So I'll be discussing affixes. So what is affix, or what are affixes? Okay, the word like affix, fix. Okay, let's look at affixes. Okay, have words that are attached to a base or root word to modify the meaning. Okay. Prefixes and suffixes are types of affixes. Okay, so affixes is the common name given to both prefixes and suffixes. So though you have prefixes, infixes as well. So I'm going to discuss prefixes and suffixes. Okay, the ground level, the beginning, right? Prefixes, suffixes. Now if you just look at the word prefix, some of you might be aware of what this word pre means. Pre itself is a kind of affix. Okay, prefix, suffix. So pre, you have pre-exam, pre is something that comes before, right? So prefix is a kind of, you can say, a word that is used or added before a word, a base word. Okay, and suffix is something that is added at the end. Okay. Affixes can be of two types, though you have infixes as well. So right now I'm discussing only prefixes and suffixes. Okay. What are prefixes? Affixes that are added to the beginning of a word. Okay. So what a prefix does is it either, okay, it changes the meaning or make a new word. Okay. For example, you have rewrite. Re plus write makes rewrite. So the, you can say, prefix here is re. Okay, rewrite. So you see, it changes the meaning, isn't it? When you add the prefix re before write, so the meaning changes. So see, write, rewrite is something you are doing again, right? Redo, rewrite. So you're writing again. So the meaning changes. Then you have un plus lock is unlock. See, you have lockdown. Okay, so many stages, right? Okay, a series of lockdown. And now unlock 1, unlock 2. And these days we are having unlock 3, right? So unlock, lock, unlock. See, the meaning is changed, isn't it? Here, the second example kind of shows a negative or something that is opposite, right? Lock, unlock, unlock the door, lock the door, unlock the door. Okay, the opposite. Okay. See, what prefixes do is it changes meaning, or what, see, like changes meaning means it may give you the antonym of something, the opposite of something, right? The negative prefixes. Okay, if you can see in the matrix, you see the negative prefix. So prefixes also show in a way, okay, changes meaning, shows. So I just want to beg your pardon here. If you can just look at the board, see, in the center of the matrix, I have written changes, which is a kind of a blunder, I would say, for myself, right? Because the heading is prefixes, right? So if you remember, I have been telling you right from the very beginning, subject-verb agreement. Do you remember? If the subject is plural, verb has to be plural. And if the subject is singular, verb has to be singular. So I don't know how I made this mistake. I didn't check right. Prefixes. So it shouldn't be changes, but change. Prefixes change or change meaning, or instead of shows, should be show. Okay. So what I can do is I can either remove the S from changes and show, or what I need to do is rather than prefixes, I should be writing prefix. Okay. Did you get that? So I don't know how I missed checking this. Prefix changes meaning or show. So since the heading is prefixes, so I should be removing this S and S from show. Clear? So I'm extremely sorry for this mistake here. Okay. So now look at the slide. So this is what I was talking about. So in the center of the matrix, what you see changes. The heading is prefixes. So I should have written change rather than changes. Okay, keep that in mind. Prefixes change meaning. Prefixes show position, quantity and number, position, right, of time. Prefixes change meaning. Prefixes show. Got it? Or I should be writing this way. Prefix changes meaning. Prefix shows. Clear? Okay, I think I'm now clear. Right. So we will look at these different types of prefixes. Okay, prefixes that change meaning. That is negative prefixes. Okay, let's look at a few examples. For examples, okay, you have D. See, why it is important for you to have idea or knowledge about some prefixes is, see, if you know that, okay, these are the prefixes that changes the meaning, that shows something negative, right? So what happens is, whenever you find this sort of prefix attached to a base word, you will kind of find it easier to puzzle out the meaning, okay? Because you know the meaning of that prefix, that particular prefix, like D. D-E-D is a prefix. So if you know that, oh, D is something that is negative, like you have deforestation, detoxify, degenerate, isn't it? D. So if you know that meaning of the base word, when you find the prefix attached to it, you find it little easier to get the meaning clear without having to consult a dictionary. Clear? Okay. So one example I have given, you can think of other examples as well, right? I told you detoxify, okay, degenerate. Then you have dis. So I think this is quite simple, all of you might be knowing, right? Dishonest. What else? Can you think of other example where the prefix dis is used? Dishonest, yes. Disobedient. Okay, you all are obedient, right? So disobedient, okay, doesn't obey, right? Then think of, okay, other words, okay? Impossible, right? Impossible, impatient, impartial, okay? So again, this shows negative, isn't it? Possible, impossible, opposites, isn't it? You have inactive, inability, yes, other words if you can think of, okay? Then you have irrelevant, okay? Irrelevant, irregular, right? What else? Think of it, okay? So all this means opposite, right? The negative. Then you have illogical, ill, okay? Now, here I just want you to pay attention to the four, you can say, prefixes, okay, after this, right? In, ir, and ill. So what you need to remember is, see, ill. So here you can like, it's like when you have the words like R and L, so we don't use irrelevant or illogical, okay? So what we use is irrelevant, illogical. Okay, the first consonant is repeated. Okay, illogical. Misunderstanding you have, misinformed, miscommunication, isn't it? So mis in a way again suggests something that is wrong, right? Misunderstanding. There must have been something wrong, right? Miscommunication you can add. Then you have non-violence, right? Violence, non-violence. Okay, then you can think of other, you can say, you have, yes, NGOs, right? Non-governmental organization, NGOs, okay, non. So these are some of the, you can say, prefixes. Then we have one more, unable, undue, undue attention, unable, okay. Then you can think of more words. So by looking at this, what I want you to do is you can just think of whatever words that have this kind of prefixes you know or you remember. Keep writing. Okay. Did you get me? So I have given you some examples of negative prefixes, and I've just given one example in written that you can see in the slide. And I also added from my own side some, you can say, verbally I told you few more examples. I want to think of more examples where this sort of negative prefixes are used, and see how many words you know, right, with such negative prefixes. You got it? Good. Okay, let's look at other one. What happened? Okay, yes. Prefixes are position, okay? So you have, that is position in terms of time, okay? For example, pre-primary you have, right? Pre-primary, that is a time the period between before your primary stage, right? Pre-primary classes, pre-primary, primary, isn't it? Then you have post, okay? Postgraduate, post-war, or post is something that shows after. Pre is before and post is after, okay? And you have foresee. So if you are not aware of the word foresee, but you are aware of the word weather forecast, isn't it? Forecast, what happens? What they do, the meteorological department, what they do, right? The people working there. They try to predict the weather, isn't it? Forecast. And then they tell you, okay, there might be storm, okay, so in a way warn the common public, isn't it? Forecast, something that you tell beforehand, before, okay, foresee, forecast. Okay? Then you have prefixes of position, that is with space. Okay? Earlier it was, the previous one was time, right? So this shows a kind of space or place, right? Indoor, right? Indoor games. Outdoor. How many of you like playing indoor games more than outdoor? Okay? So if you want to stay fit, you need to focus more on outdoor games than indoor games, right? Indoor games you have to use your mind, but you don't have a lot of physical activities, isn't it? So outdoor activities. Sticking to your tablet or playing video games won't help, isn't it? So you need to go out, play, right? So where you can say such games where you have more physical exercise, okay? Outdoor games, outdoor activities, okay? And you often see such a word like inpatient, outpatient in hospital, isn't it? So in is something inside, out is outside, right? In and out. Indoor, outdoor, sorry. And you have in between, right? In between, right? Midway, midnight, okay. So by looking at why am I giving you this example is just to help you get idea about all those prefixes. By looking at the prefixes in, and then if you see a word, base word attached to this prefix, you will get an idea, oh, this tells about this. Okay, this might mean outdoor, means something outside, right? Mid is in between, right? Midway. Okay. Then you have inter, okay? Inter-school, inter-class. So do you have some sort of inter-school activities? So different schools, okay, participate. Okay, inter-school sports, maybe inter-school cultural show, or you have inter-class. See, in your school you have different classes, isn't it? So say suppose there's a sort of a quiz contest between different classes. It is inter-class. But when it is within the same class, we call intra. Intra. Interstate, intrastate. So you must have heard this word during this pandemic, right? This lockdown, when kind of your government, in a way, the state government issues notice that, okay, bus transport will be kind of made available for intrastate, within the state, intra. Okay, interstate means from between one, you can say different states, right? Right now we are in Himachal Pradesh, right? If the bus transportation is available between Himachal Pradesh and Uttarakhand, says Uttarakhand is another state. So that is interstate bus transportation, right? So if it's within the same state, it's intra. Intra, inter. Will you remember this? Good. Intra-school, within the same school, right? Inter-school is between different schools. Intra. Then you have transport. Trans means across. Okay, you have transplant. Okay, when you the seedlings you grow somewhere and then you transplant it in another place, across, right? Transport. Blood transfusion, if you have heard about. Okay, something that is across. Transport. Transportation, transport. Trans is the prefix. Portation you will learn about in my later session. Okay, suffix. Okay, transport. Okay, port is the root word here. Okay, by adding the prefix trans, we get a new word, right? Transport. Then you have telephone, distant communication, right? You have teleprompter, you have telecommunication, telegram. In earlier times, we have telegram. Now these days, with the advancement in technology, you don't rely on telegram, isn't it? You have fax and mail and a lot of things, right? So earlier, you have to rely on telegram, okay? So distant, tele is word, okay? This is a kind of root word, and it's also used as a prefix here, telephone, okay? Then you have prefixes of quantity. For example, hyperactive. This child is hyperactive, okay? I am hyperactive if I say. Hyper is, you can say overly active, too much in number or quantity here. So not in number, I'm sorry. Quantity, see, too much, you can say hyperactive, very, very active, okay? More than what is expected, you can say as a normal, right? Hyperactive. Hypo is less than the normal, okay? Hypoactive is not active, you can say at the normal level as well, less than the normal, okay? The activity is less than normal, okay? So hypoactive. So in science, we have hypertonic solution. Hypertonic, you will come to know in your higher classes, okay? Hypo here is less and hyper is more, right? Hyperactive, hypoactive. Overeating. Now see, prefixes of quantity here, over. So when you do a lot of eating, right? You keep gulping things, okay? Even when your stomach is full, right? What you are doing is you are overeating, isn't it? You are eating more than required. You are eating more than your body could digest. You are doing overeating. So overeating results in overweight, right? Then you become obese, isn't it? So you gain more weight and then you become overweight, right? So don't do overeating. Then underweight, okay. Then if you don't eat, okay, you don't take a proper diet, okay, don't, you can say, pay attention to what you eat, okay, and if you are very weak, you may become underweight, right? The body weight that is considered normal as per your height and, okay, so an age, that is underweight, right? So over, again you see more, under is less, okay? When we also use words like don't underestimate, under. You consider the other person, you can say, less, then you are less superior. Not, you try to consider yourself superior and the other person inferior. Okay, you are underestimating the person, right? You should not do that. So overweight, overeating, underweight, what else you can think of? Okay. Then you have prefixes of number. Okay. So some prefixes show number. Okay. Semi or semi, okay, semicircle. So since you all study maths, right? So you know this, isn't it? Semicircle. Now see, when you know the word circle, isn't it? So what happens? See, when you know what is meaning of circle, okay, you are already aware of the word circle, okay, and you see, if you happen to see this word semicircle, if you don't know what this prefix semi or semi means, it would be little difficult for you to puzzle out the meaning or decode the meaning of the word, because you only know circle and you will kind of try to imagine or think that, okay, it has something to do with circle, but what? You are not aware. Okay, so that's why it's very important that you have knowledge of those prefixes. So if you know that semi or semi, okay, means half, okay, then you can easily kind of decode the meaning of the word semicircle, because circle you know, right? So semicircle means half, okay, half of a circle, right? Semicircle. Semi-solid, you know the meaning of solid. So when you get the word like semi-solid, if you know the meaning of semi, the prefix semi means half, so it becomes so easy for you to get the meaning of the word semi-solid, means half. It's not completely solid, maybe partially liquid, partially solid, semi-solid. Like jelly you have, kind of, right? Sticky thing, okay? So semi. So it's very important you know the meaning of those prefixes. Okay, let's look at the slide. Uni. Okay, I have given the example here, unicorn. Okay, why the animal is called unicorn? You have one, okay, a kind of horn or corn on, right? Unicorn. Then you have unicellular organism, just with one cell, right? Uni. So uni means one, okay? Unisex, either boy or girl, male or female, right? You have clothes or shoes, that is unisex, means both girl or boy can wear, okay? Male or female can use, that's unisex, okay? Mono, again, okay, refers to single, okay, mono. So, since you are in class, some of you are in class 6, 7, 8, you have learned about monomial, binomial in algebra, in maths. Do you remember? Monomial, binomial, trinomial. Mono is 1. Binomial, bi means 2. Tri, 3. So, it's very important you know the meaning of these prefixes. So, it's easier for you to understand when you happen to see these prefixes attached to a base word. Right? Okay. Look at this slide. So, mono acting is one person acting on a stage. You have mono acting. So, you have to deliver the dialogue. You have to play the different roles, right? Mono acting here. Bi, 2, bicycle. See, you have 2 wheels, isn't it? Bike, bicycle, binocular. Okay. So, bi refers to the term 2. So, this also just number, right? Prefixes of number. Semi or semi half. Uni 1, right? Mono again 1. Bi means 2. Di again 2. So, digraph, you have 2 letter representing a phoneme, right? Digraph, okay? Again, di is bi and di both are 2, okay? Tri, you know triangle, isn't it? Triangle, because you have 3 angles, isn't it? Triangle. Then you have multi. So, tri is, you can see in maths also you kind of learn about all this, right? Number, you can say prefixes of number. You have pentagon, hexagon. Hexagon means hexa is the word suggesting 6. Hexagon, octagon, okay? Like octopus, 10. Okay? Deca again, okay? Okay, sorry. You have quadra is showing 4, right? Quadrilateral. Then you have penta, okay, pentane, pentagon, 5, hexa, 6, hepta, 7, okay, octa, 8, okay, I just got confused. And then you have nona, 9, deca, 10, okay. So, this way, if you remember this, then you can easily, because polygon, if you are to see when you learn maths, if you are to learn about different polygons, so if you have the knowledge of these prefixes, it becomes very easy for you, okay. If your teacher asks you, okay, how many sides are there in a decagon? If you have no idea about deca, you may get confused. But if you know that, okay, deca means 10, decade, right? And you can say pentagon. If you have idea about penta, then it's very easy for you, right? 5 sides. Triangle, 3 angles, isn't it? You got it? Okay. So, this way it's very easy, or it's important for you to know about these prefixes, okay? Tri is 3, multicellular, multinational, okay? So, cellular, cell, okay? We are multicellular organisms because you can say, we are made up of so many cells, then you have multitasking. So many tasks, work you do, right? Multitasking. So, multi is, again you can say so many, right? See, you can easily decode the meaning. Multiply, right? When you multiply, multi. Cent is the prefix for century, 100. Centimeter, right? Cent. Centipede, we have centipede, we consider centipede has 100 legs, right? Centipede. Then century, 100, okay. Sachin scores, okay, a century. Or you can say Dhoni scores a century, 100 run, 100 score. 21st century we talked about, right? Developing 21st century skills, century, okay, 100. So, what I'll do is in my next session, I'll be discussing more on, you can say, the suffixes of number, and then I'll maybe help you get some more idea about affixes, okay. So some more examples of prefixes and then suffixes I will discuss in my next session after Gedins Thargilas session. Okay, thank you.